When the teams arrived, they found the magnificent new stadium in Montevideo nearing completion. The first World Cup could begin. Sadly, many of the European nations, discouraged by the long journey, declined the invitation. Only 13 teams assembled for the opening ceremony, including a Romanian team, personally selected by King Carol. The World Cup trophy, later to be named after Jules Rimet, was designed by a French sculptor. It stood 12 inches high, weighed almost 9 pounds, and was made of solid gold. In the first match, Mexico played France, a special memory for Lucien Laurent.
The match began normally with both teams battling for possession. Suddenly, Delfour attacked down the right and passed to Liberati, who centred. I sped through the middle, connected with the ball on the volley, and scored in the corner of the goal. It was the first goal. Everybody was very happy, but we didn't kiss each other in those days.
It's 60 years since that memorable day, but Lucien Laurent, known to his friends as the Little Cadet, still plays football at home in Besançon at the age of 84. It's ironical that only now the Little Cadet is receiving the recognition he deserves for scoring the first World Cup goal. But France and Lucien Laurent failed to make it to the final. Instead, it was the match all the locals wanted, Uruguay against Argentina. Emilio Recoba was one of the Uruguayan squad for that first World Cup final.
The game against Argentina? I remember they played so well in the first half and took the lead. Then, after half-time, everything changed.
Before a 90,000 crowd in the Centenario, Uruguay were favourites to win. Emilio Recoba was a reserve for the captain, Nasazzi, here on the left. Uruguay are wearing the darker shorts. The home team struck first. But by half-time, Argentina had taken a 2-1 lead. The celebrations, however, started with this equalizer for Uruguay. Then suddenly, the Uruguayans were heading for victory. Castro, the one-armed forward, scored a fourth goal in the final minute to make certain. It was all over at last. After 2 Olympic victories, Uruguay could now call themselves true world champions. The Golden Trophy was presented by Jules Rimet, a moment which marked the finest hour in Uruguayan football.
We were all very happy. It was a time of great celebration because we had 2 Olympic victories, 7 South American championships, and then to win the first World Championship. That's a record. It's unknown in the world. It's the greatest feeling there is. The greatest honor in football.
And so, the World Cup had been born. In Europe, the popularity of the game increased dramatically in the aftermath of World War I. In England, over 200,000 people attended the 1923 Cup final between Bolton Wanderers and West Ham United, the first game at Wembley Stadium. It was far more than the ground had been designed for, and the game got underway with people standing around the edge of the pitch. Football was equally popular in the rest of Europe. Football historian Ludwig Stechewicz.
In 1918, we had introduced the 8-hour day on the founding of the Austrian Republic. Before that, we used to work 10 to 12 hours a day. So, there was a lot more leisure time. Football was the most popular game. It was cheap and easy to understand.
In Vienna in 1923, over 100,000 spectators were attracted to this match between Austria and Italy. Several countries had by now adopted professionalism. Football was flourishing, and the ideas of men of vision were starting to transform the game. What was to be a revolution in Austrian football was led by Hugo Meisel, a man from a wealthy background who devoted his life to football. One of Meisel's innovations was a club competition for the best teams in Central Europe. In 1927, the Mitropa Cup was born, although perhaps the conditions in this semi-final left something to be desired. Sparta of Prague played Viennese club Rapid in the first final, and with the pitch somewhat drier, beat the Austrians comprehensively 6-2 at home. The away match was a formality, and the world's first major international club competition went to Czechoslovakia. What Meisel wanted most was a great Austrian national team. And in 1931, at the Ring Café in Vienna, the Wunder team was born. It was the haunt of Vienna's sports writers, most of whom disagreed with Meisel's team selections. For once, he decided to follow their advice.
We had two excellent football players who were both centre-forwards for their clubs, Schwedel at Vienna and Sindelar at Austria. But a permanent partnership had never been tried. Sindelar was called the man of paper because he was physically very slight. The journalist said, put them together. Sindelar as centre-forward and Schwedel as the connecting man. Well, they did, against Scotland on May the 16th, 1931. And we beat them, 5-0.
The new Wunder team, commemorated in a painting at the Austrian Football Association, was unbeatable for nearly 2 years. They played 12 matches against the best in Europe, winning 10, drawing 2, and scoring 49 goals. They were led by Matthias Sindelar, an elusive and beguiling player, ably supported by an array of skillful forwards. In 1932, the Wunder team went to London for their sternest test, a match against England, who'd never lost to a foreign team at home. This time, not even the magic of Sindelar could bring victory for the Austrians. But it was very close before England won by a single goal, 4-3.
This result sent a shockwave through international football. In its own domain, the English crown had been shaken. Unfortunately, it didn't fall.
However, there were other forces stirring in Europe. Italy under Mussolini was a country attempting to make its mark on the world. and one way in which this could be achieved was through the medium of sport. When Italy was awarded the 1934 World Cup, it was seen as a great opportunity to boost the nation's standing. Italy swept to the final in Rome on a torrent of nationalist fervor to face Czechoslovakia under the glare of Il Duce. The Czechoslovak captain that day was their goalkeeper, František Planička.
The atmosphere was wonderful. We were all looking forward to playing there. When we won our place in Italy, we wanted to do our best to achieve the best result for all the people at home. We tried very hard. However, the referee, Mr. Eklund from Sweden, was seen in Mussolini's box before the match. He was there for a long time. He was given directives by him. He was told what to do and what not to do. And we were the victims.
These accusations have never been proven, and Czechoslovakia actually took the lead midway through the second half through a goal from Antonín Puč. There were only 7 minutes left when Italy equalized through Raimundo Orsi. Then, to the delight of Mussolini, Angelo Schiavio scored the winner in extra time. Italy were world champions. Planička, now in retirement in Prague, has many memories of the greatest day of his life. But he has one special souvenir in his collection, the ball that beat him twice. The Italian team were unassailable. In 1935, they played Austria in Vienna and discovered a new star. Silvio Piola scored both goals as Italy beat the once mighty Austrians 2-0. He was to become the most feared forward of his day. The game was also a triumph for Italy's technical director, Vittorio Pozzo.
I have nothing but fond memories of Vittorio Pozzo. Not only was he a technician, he always encouraged his players when they needed help. He was a very humane man. I can't speak higher of him than that.
Pozzo was born in Turin, but his ideas on football were based on his experiences in England before the First World War. On his return, he found himself involved in running the national team, becoming full-time technical director in 1929. His skill lay in being able to exploit the prevailing mood of self-confidence in Italy to forge a powerful Italian team. In 1936, he took the Italian amateur team to the Berlin Olympics, and Pozzo's psychology worked again. They won the gold medal. But the map of Europe was changing rapidly. In 1938, Austria ceased to exist as a sovereign state when it was annexed by the Third Reich. The Anschluss covered all aspects of life. When the Germans played Switzerland in the opening match of that year's World Cup in France, they included 5 members of the now defunct Austrian team. Not that it did them any good. In a replay, the Swiss scored 4 times to eliminate them. The favourites were, yet again, Italy. Piola was now at his peak, and Italian pride demanded that they retain their world title. Their first obstacle was Norway. Then, clad entirely in black, they played the hosts, France. In the semi-final, their opponents were Brazil. Brazil were the only South Americans in France, and in Leonidas da Silva, they had one of football's most skillful exponents. Against Poland, he'd displayed his talent for the first time in Europe and scored 4 times. But just as they were astute in attack, so Brazil were naive in defense. Wilimowski scored 4 for Poland in reply, as one of the World Cup's most remarkable games was decided in Brazil's favor after extra time. The score, 6-5. So to Marseille, and the best of Europe against South America's finest in the semi-final. The Brazilians were so confident they allowed Leonidas to miss the game, preferring to rest him for the final. Against the world champions, such overconfidence was fatal. When Meazza scored Italy's second goal from a penalty, the Brazilians were out. So the third World Cup final at the Stade Colombe in Paris was between Italy and Hungary. The Hungarians were led by George Sarosi, a doctor of philosophy, but they weren't clever enough for the Italians. Colossi took only 6 minutes to put the champions ahead. Hungary replied within a minute, as Titkos was left unmarked in the Italian penalty area. Italy hadn't lost to Hungary for 13 years, and they proceeded to pull Hungary's defense apart. Piola scored the second. Then Colossi added another to make the score 3-1 at the interval. In the second half, Italy allowed the Hungarians back into the match. Sarosi reduced the margin to 1 goal, much to the consternation of Pozzo. He didn't have to suffer for long. Italy's victory was made secure by Piola. Pozzo and Italy had their second title. Vittorio Pozzo remains the only man to have led his country to 2 World Cup triumphs. The trophy was collected by their captain, Giuseppe Meazza. But their win was to be the last chapter in European football for nearly a decade, as yet again the world descended into global conflict.